Hi everyone, this is Larilyn with House of Okotie Design. Welcome to the channel. Today, if you are new, this channel is all about sewing, my love for sewing and embroidery, as well as fashion design. Today, we'll be looking at pattern Vogue R11479. This is a beautiful summer dress. I'm sewing, of course, at the end of season. As usual, I always have one special project waiting till the end before we get into cooler weathers. So hopefully this client will get at least a couple of wears out of this beautiful material. So I've got everything cut out here. It's a beautiful floral printed chiffon, and I'm also going to underline it over here, or line it, I should say. What you're going to need for this fabric or pattern are 10 pieces. We're going to need the upper front, the tie piece that goes around the neck, the mid front around the midsection, the back casing. There's a separate guide to measure your elastic based on your size, the skirt front, the skirt back, a pocket if you so choose, and who doesn't love a good pocket in a dress, the skirt ruffle, and also continuous bias. And of course, we're going to see that around the beautiful edge detail that you see here. So I've decided to contrast this dress, the chiffon floral print, with this darker navy blue color, or maybe it's more of a midnight blue. So keep watching and we're going to put this beauty together. Okay, so just to recap steps 3 and 4, we have basted the tie to both of the tops of your upper front sections. You're then going to place the second portion of the upper front part right sides together. And you want to make sure that you have your tie extended. You don't want it the other way. You want it hanging out because you have to turn these pieces right side out once you stitch them all around. And that's going on to step number 4, where you're going to follow again the stitching, and you're going to leave that notched edge open for turning, which takes you to step 5 to be able to do that. Okay, so to recap, this end you have partially basted or sewn, where I have the ribbon on one edge. I've turned it, flipped it, and as I'm pulling, I'm actually pulling the spaghetti strap right side out here, as you can see. So that's kind of the trick that I've come up with. Those little loop turners and things like that, I've never had a whole lot of success with. But again, if you have any other suggestions of how to do these spaghetti straps, let me know in the comments. Thank you. And here we go, pulling it the opposite edge all the way through. And there you go. A spaghetti strap. Thanks for watching, guys. Okay, so I'm moving on to the halter dress, the very front portion. We're going to start with pattern piece number 2, and it's actually this tie piece, which was cut on the bias, and you're going to cut 2 of those pieces. So the directions actually state you're going to take the fabric lengthwise, fold it right sides together, the entire length of the fabric piece, and you're just going to do a scant 1/4 inch seam to close it. So you want to enclose just one end and the entire length, leaving one end open for turning. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and work on that part, as well as the second step, the actual turning. Sometimes I use a safety pin connected to a very thin ribbon to pull through the other end when I'm dealing with these small shoulder straps or ties or neckties. You know, the needle is also an option. But if you guys have any suggestions of better ways to do these spaghetti straps, please share them in the comments. I would appreciate it. Okay, so this is what it should look like here. That's your front, and you want to make sure that when you turn it right side out, the notch is actually on the inside, closer to the midline of your body. So because this chiffon is so transparent, sometimes you can actually use thread to mark here. Tailor's chalk is probably not the best, but I just took my chances with the fabric marker, remembering where I marked my circles, and I did the scissors for the notches. The next portion is to go underneath, and you're going to understitch just to make sure everything lies nice and neat here. And the trick when doing this, guys, is to make sure that you've left one end over here that you've either basted or partially sewn with a piece open. So when you're pulling it from this side as it's coming out, doing this with two hands, it's a little weird, but so you can actually see. There we go. You're going to continue to pull this way, the opposite side, to turn it, to continue to turn it out, if that makes sense. Okay, moving on to step 2, we're going to need both of the straps. We've already pressed them, we've already turned them right side out, and on the outside of the front pieces, piece number 1, which is the upper front, should look like this. You're going to pin one strap to the top of each of the sides, right sides together. And then when you're done with that, you're going to move on to step 4 and then pin the upper front sections together. Again, leaving the raw edges even at the top, and you're going to stitch them together. And you can actually see that's where your strap is here and your strap is there. Because at this point, you're going to actually turn those sections right side out as you move here. So that's actually 4 pieces of number 1, the upper front, that you're going to need to get to step 5. I'm going to work on that. Okay guys, I will be making a spaghetti strap. I have my tie piece of the pattern that's sewn right sides together, sewn 1/4 inch down the lengthwise portion here, leaving both sides of the ends open. Now, this is my attempt to turn this out. The easiest way that I know is to take a safety pin on a very thin ribbon, and I just kind of thread it through from one side to the other. As you pulled it all the way through to the other end, you're then going to baste or stitch one edge closed, and then you're going to use the safety pin in the other hand as you continue to pull it all the way through, continuing to pull, and then you're going to flip it inside out. Okay, so this is what it should look like here. That's your front, and you want to make sure that when you turn it right side out, the notch is actually on the inside closer to the midline of your body. So because this chiffon is so transparent, sometimes you can actually use thread to mark here. Tailor's chalk is probably not the best, but I just took my chances with the fabric marker, remembering where I marked my circles, and I did the scissors for the notches. The next portion is to go underneath, and you're going to understitch just to make sure everything lies nice and neat here. Okay, moving on to section 6, we're going to take the midriff section, which is piece number 3, and we're going to place right sides together with both of your upper front sections. You're going to match the circles, and here are your notches in the center, and you're going to baste all the way across, and of course adjust the gathers for a proper fit. Okay, so this is the section where you're going to run your elastic through. This is the casing, the back casing, that's actually sewn to the side at the midriff section here. So I've actually left this portion open to put my safety pin with the elastic to thread it through, and you should have an elastic pattern piece that's the actual size, correct size of the waist to thread through. So this is probably about 43 inches, and I have to gather it to the waist for this client that's about 26 inches. Okay, so this is how much of the dress that I have put together so far. It's simply just pinned to the dress form. This is only the front part of the skirt attached to the back part of the skirt at the sides. The bodice and the midriff, again, it's just pinned. Now on the side, the next step that the video did not show was the pockets, and that's kind of straightforward. You're going to take the pocket right sides together, pinning it to the right side of the front skirt, pinning it to the right side of the back skirt, and then turn those pockets to the inside to actually make a pocket. And then you're going to stitch down the seam here, stitch down the seam here, and reinforce at the bottom, and continuing your side seam. Now, the thing with the chiffon material, I did not do any understitching, and I'm not sure if I'm going to, but if you're using a cotton, a linen, a denim, you know, anything woven, I think would be fine to do the top stitching. But because I will do a lining with this, I just think I'm going to take my chances, and hopefully she still likes it. But that's kind of where I am. And next part, I'll be moving on to the ruffle. So I'll let you see that next. So this is what this piece looks like when you've taken the upper front portion. It's attached to the mid front. You're then going to take your back casing, which is number 4, and you're going to pin those sides together on each side of the midriff. And you're going to stitch according to number 8 here. When you're done with that, you're going to turn the midriff and the casing to the inside again along that fold line from your pattern. You're going to press the areas open. You're going to baste the lower edges together, leaving an opening in the back casing to insert the elastic. Okay, so this is the effect of the gathering stitch. You're going to put your machine, of course, on the longest stitch length. The machine that I'm using, it's the Bernina Burnett 79. I'll let you take a look. That's the one I'm sewing this on. And the great thing about this machine is that there's actually a creative consultant portion feature. I'll let you see up close here. Kind of off topic, but it's that little button right there. If any of you are using it and wondering what it's for, get out that manual. It's a handy tool because it'll let you pick, you know, the fabric, determine the type of fabric you're working with, would recommend the actual needle, thread, and you know, so that you get the best stitching. So anyway, back to what we're doing. This is the gathering stitch. This is going to gather to your level of comfort so that it nice and contours around the level of the bust. You're going to do the same thing on the other side and gather between the small circles. Okay, so moving on to the midriff section, we've actually sewn the midriff, basted first and adjusted gathers along the front upper portions, and then stitch the midriff right sides together, and this is the outcome. All right, so the next step, of course, you're going to make sure you press those edges open, go back and understitch along the midriff facing, that's number 8. Same thing as you did before, and you're gonna press the midriff extra portions down. Moving on to number 9, it says open the side edges of the midriff. With right sides together, we're going to pin the back casing number 4 to the midriff sections at the sides. Okay, so you've got your 2 notches here. You want to match up your back casing to the midriff side sections, and that's number 8. Moving on to 10, turn the midriff and the casing to the inside along the fold line and press it. Baste the lower edges together, leaving an opening in the back casing to insert elastic here. Okay, so you're going to have a continuous circle when you're done. All right, so the next step calls for gathering. You want to make sure that you've actually marked on your face fabric where your notches are. You can kind of see my notch. I did that with the scissors here. You're going to gather between the small circles. So I have a mark here and I have another mark. It's kind of hard for you to see there. But on the fabric piece, the pattern instructions, you're going to gather between here. So the notch is closest to the midline. You're gathering between the small circles there. So here I have my back casing. This is my elastic with the pin, and I'm just going to push that all the way around. And once I push that all the way around, I'm just going to adjust the ease in it to fit the measurements of, again, the waist. So this measured about 43 inches in circumference all the way around, and I have to use the elastic to gather it in to the waist measurement that's about 26 inches. So just taking my time, going all the way through, gather everything to separate, make it neat. And then of course you're going to make sure you don't pull the opposite end of the elastic through. Sew up that opening. Usually I close that by hand, and that's pretty much it for this portion. All right, so here I have the top part of the ruffle. What you want to do is to turn the top part of the edge down a ½ inch. You're going to stitch as close as you can as the edge here. You're just making a narrow rolled hem, basically. We're going to stitch, and then you're going to trim off the excess, fold that top layer in again, and then stitch down. So that'll be a clean finish. So I'll let you see what that part looks like, and then we'll be on to finishing the ruffle. So there we go. All right, so this is the ruffle. So I have 4 of these that were cut on the fold. You're going to stitch them. There should be a little notch on each side of those. You're going to stitch your seam all the way down on each 4 of those right sides together. And when you're done, you want to just make sure that you're going to pin it to the actual dress, because you're wanting to gather. You should have a marking on your material. I did not mark again because it is chiffon, but you're going to gather along the top so that that top part of that ruffle perfectly matches going around the front part to the back part of the skirt. Okay, so I have the completed shell of the dress done here, and I'm working on the lining. So basically for the lining, and it's not going to be a full video, it's basically you're making a second dress. And that's why this is called slow fashion, because you're taking your time to remake the inside as beautiful as the outside. So you have the 2 pieces here of the front. I think that was pieces number 1. You have your midriff section. Of course, you have your front, your back sewn together at the sides. And then you have your bottom ruffle, and you have to pin that all the way around with the basting stitch first. And then I'm going to insert this inside of the dress, and this will be on the inside. And then we'll be working on the hem, making sure that hem is nice and straight and getting the proper length. Okay, so this is where I am. I just have everything pinned to the dress form. I have the gathered portion of the ruffles done. I've attached to the front, I've attached to the back. You can see where I have pocket's nice and deep here, and again around back. Everything is pinned. So once you've gotten to this stage, you want to go in and baste the stitches just to make sure around the ruffles it's where you want it to be, and go ahead and stitch in. I think the directions call for a 1/4 inch within that stitching line, and from here I think I'm pretty happy. Of course, there's still no lining here yet, and everything is just simply pinned onto the dress form. Okay, so I'm looking at step 18 on the pattern instructions. The ruffle has been gathered. It's been sewn to the bottom of the front edge as well as the back edge around the skirt. Basted stitches, went back in and stitched just to make sure everything was nice and secured. Spread the ruffles to the, to spread the ruffles the way that I'd like it to look on the dress. That part's been done. So now we have the skirt wrong side out. Remember, this will be a lining, so just forget about these little frayed edges for now on the chiffon. Wrong side of the skirt is facing me. I've dropped the inside of the bodice inside of the skirt. So essentially, I'm pinning the right side of the bodice against the right side of the skirt all the way around. And you want to make sure you stretch your elastic as you go. So when you turn everything out, of course, once it's not pinned, you'll have, give you a good look here. You'll actually have the clean finish here, and it's just pinned, but you'll be able to have a clean finish of your bodice midriff here, all around the back part. Sorry, here, there. Okay, so all of that will be sewn together. So that's this step, pinning the bodice to the skirt. And of course, once you're done with sewing the sides together, you're going to go in and do your gathering stitches here, and that's your center back seam of which you want to make sure it's matching to your back seam of the dress. Okay, so I've moved on to the gathering portion of the ruffle that's going to attach to the bottom of the front and the back portion of the skirt. I'm using my Juki HCL F600 machine, and I have it set to the longest stitch length of 5. And make sure that you leave a long tail of thread before you start your gathering. And you're going to gather around the entire piece. And I've measured about 1 inch from the edge for this. Okay, so I have the completed shell of the dress done here. And I'm working on the lining. So basically for the lining, and it's not gonna be a full video, it's basically you're making a second dress. And that's why this is called slow fashion, because you're taking your time to remake the inside as beautiful as the outside. So you have the 2 pieces here of the front. I think that was pieces number 1. You have your midriff section. Of course, you have your front, your back sewn together at the sides. And then you have your bottom ruffle, and you have to pin that all the way around with the basting stitch first. And then I'm going to insert this inside of the dress, and this will be on the inside. And then we'll be working on the hem, making sure that hem is nice and straight and getting the proper length.